7 years ago. There is a lot of change.
You saying I'm fat?
No.
I used to say like eliminate distraction, focus, monk-like discipline. But then I was like, what if the distraction was the answer? I wonder what would happen if I broke every rule just for fun. And then, you know, I look at like Elon Musk and I'm like, sleeps like 4 hours a night. He's unhealthy as fuck. He doesn't work out. He drinks Diet Coke. He doesn't meditate. He has like 5 businesses. He's like out of control. He seems to be kicking everyone's ass. I made an ad and it said, it was like one of the best performing ads I ever made. Yeah.
This industry, if you look at it like 10 years ago, it completely changed.
Why do you think it's doing that?
Because it's
Yeah, I think you're right.
that time, did you think that it was possible to succeed without suffering? Do you think the way you were teaching inside is still like the best way you can teach?
Oh, that's like another God level question.
C'est comme toute l'histoire du peuple noir qui se balance entre l'amour et les espoirs. Quelque chose qui danse en toi. Si tu l'as, tu l'as.
So I just arrived yesterday, we checked into the villa and I'm heading now to school HQ. I will have a conversation with Sam. I have a lot of questions to ask him. To give you a little bit more of context, I needed to go in the US for a mastermind in Phoenix. That was really great. And since I was there, I texted Sam to ask him if he was available to make quick videos together. I have a lot of questions to ask him. For those who don't know me, my name is Mason. I've been doing info businesses for about 4 years now. And before that, I was doing e-com and physical businesses also. In this channel, I'm just gonna share with you whatever I like, whatever I want. When I travel, when I have some business things, I don't know. Actually, I'm just starting, but it's been a long time since I wanted to create content and I'm finally starting. I'm very excited for this video. For those who don't know Sam Ovens, he's the founder of Skool, which is one of the biggest company in the info space. They make about 50 million per year, I think. And before that, Sam also founded consulting.com, which was one of the biggest high-ticket info business. And so he has so much knowledge about this industry, so much insight. Thanks to Skool also, we can see everything that's happening in the market at the moment. I'm very excited for this conversation. If you have an info business, stick to this video because I'm sure you will get so much value from it. So, I'm just gonna head up, prepare myself a little bit, and let's go.
Au-dessus des vieux volcans, glisse des ailes sous le tapis du vent. Voyage, voyage.
I just arrived in Skool HQ about an hour ago. Sam is currently making a call, so I will make a quick tour of the office to show you how it looks like. It's pretty original and I really like it. You can see how it looks like, and as soon as he's done with his meeting, we're just gonna set up somewhere simple and have a chat. So here is just the meeting rooms, you know, this viewing area.
Voyage, voyage. Voyage, voyage.
So I have one main topic that I want to talk about with you, and I just have like a little images to show you about this. What I've seen and
Are we doing it now? Is this live right
Yeah.
now? Oh, okay, cool.
I mean, there is no, I don't want it to be
Oh, you're gonna edit it?
Just chill. I want this content to be very authentic.
Okay.
So actually, we could have filmed the conversation we had before. I mean, some things we couldn't talk about, but this is how I want my content to be. The conversation we have and like...
We could have filmed that
Yeah.
that original conversation. That would have been a
But we will not talk
good
about
piece
that
of
anymore.
content.
Yeah. But earlier we talk a lot about Skool. Now I want to talk more about yourself. I think that to have changes in your life, the best way to have like big changes in your life is to shift your identity. And I've seen, just looking at your content over the past few years, that I identified few identity shifts that you had, and just how you speak, what you talk about, and everything. It seems like completely different persons. I mean, you still have like that base, but this is what I've seen. I have three like major period. 2018, some in just physically also, like if you look just 7 years ago, there is a lot of change. You talked first time we met.
You saying I'm fat?
No. No, but you said that
Oh, there has been some physical changes.
in 2018 it's not yourself. Like you felt like you had to pretend to be someone that you are not, just to fit in the box and get out of that scammy, you know, like info business industry. That's why you like were dressed like that.
Are you asking me what happened?
Yeah, what happened between this shift? And also, like, I just got few things that you were saying at the same time. I'm not sure it's aligned anymore with who you are, but in 2018, for example, some of your principles were love pain, exercise every day, eat clean, meditate, relentless persistence, like, and I think that your guiding principles has changed over time. What happened and what made you shift like that?
I got married, which, and I think something changes a bit when you get married too. You're not, you know, you're like locking a major life choice in, and then my wife was an influence too. She could tell that I wasn't that happy, and she thought what I was doing was gross. She told me that. And she thought I should just follow my heart more and be more how I normally am, because she loved me based on how I was when like when I wasn't making content and stuff, and I would be more like playful and sneaky, she called it, and so, and like creative and things, and she was like, you should just follow that because that makes you happy. She thought that I'd be way more successful doing that, and I wasn't that happy doing the other thing. And so yeah, it was all of those things kind of happening at once, but also just having a wife that you know, like loves you no matter what, and for who she thinks you really are instead of who you might be trying to be. It gives you a lot of freedom, right, to just not care what people think and everything, because you're not trying to yeah. And there's also just maturing a bit too, because I think when I first started in business and I was young and you have a lot of insecurities, you don't think you're good enough, or imposter syndrome or something, and so maybe I used a lot of these things. If you see like the suit in New York and the Manhattan skyline and the things I'm saying here, like eat clean, exercise, I mean, no shit, like everyone says that. It's just like repeating the same shit and you're like conforming to the stereotype in a way. You're doing what you think you need to do, that's just basic, but you're not that happy doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What about love pain?
What, like, do I really believe that?
Yeah.
Not really. I think, you know, there's definitely some things that are painful and you can't avoid it. But I just think loving pain is a kind of weird, especially if you're going to build a product. A great product makes people feel good. If you love pain, what kind of product are you going to make? Right? Like a treadmill or something? Like something that people are going to hate. Whereas I'm trying to make a product that makes people feel good, and to do that, you have to like you have to have more sensitivity. And I think when you love pain, you blunten your senses. Actually, you have to almost deny them, and you have to get very sensitive to emotion to make something feel good. So it's a complicated thing, it's nuanced. Like, I have to do things to make a great product that are painful, and I endure through them. I don't avoid them. But to believe that loving pain is the answer would be completely messed up. I think everyone wants to feel good and happy. And if you can achieve the result without feeling pain, isn't that better?
Do you think everyone wants to be happy? Or
Yeah, why would they not?
do you think they are all aware of that? Because you hear a lot, specifically in the business and hustle mindset, that you have to go through pain, you have to suffer if you want to succeed. You
it's
cannot be happy
complicated.
and successful. Like, what do you think of that?
But it's complicated, right? Because why do they even want to be successful? To make money, because they're not happy right now because they need money. So like, then someone tells them to make money, which will make you happy, you need to go through pain. And they're like, okay, like, so it's complicated. Or maybe they think they want to find a wife or a girlfriend or something, and they think they need to be successful, and to do that they need to love pain. And I guess working out's kind of similar, right? So like, but what if there was a way to do that without I think everyone would take that path, right? I think this is the thing that stumps everyone, which is like the nuance, which is why I don't really like making content or even saying anything because it looks like I'm just one giant contradiction. You know, I'm like, I honestly believe both, and it's like finding the tension point and between the two.
Yeah, and you don't ever have enough time and to give all the context of what you think.
Well, it just sounds like, well, to me, I love hearing someone like a real artist or genius trying to like articulate how they found that point in between these things. But I think people on the internet with a tweet or a short are just looking for something like love pain, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that time, did you think that it was possible to succeed without suffering?
What time back then?
2018, yeah, back then. Or you thought it was the only way, only path available?
In my immediate circle and experience online, it seemed like that was the way, right? But when I looked at the outliers, the people who were the most successful, like reading the story by Sam Walton, who did Walmart, which was the most valuable company on earth at the time that he like wrote this book, or Jeff Bezos, Amazon, again, most valuable company, and even looking at like people like Mark Zuckerberg and stuff, I realized that they were having serious fun, like extreme amounts of fun, and that this ride they were on looked awesome, and they were kind of following their passion, and they were way more successful than me and everyone else I knew. And so I was like, shit, maybe I got this wrong.
When was that?
Around back then, because you know, I'd look at the most successful people, I would look at, and then my wife was saying, and then, you know, I was like, mate, there's got to be something to this, I think. Yeah.
And so at that time you made shift from consultech.com, but still, and started thinking about school?
Yeah. So I wanted to start school, and because it was a bigger thing that was more creative, something that and my wife was like, yeah, you should do it. And then I also didn't like New York. Neither did my wife. And then, because school was a new company and it's a tech company, we thought, well, you know, San Francisco, right? So we flew to San Fran, and we toured like Palo Alto, Mountain View, you know, all around Silicon Valley. And it just really didn't feel right at all. And then we were like, oh, screw it, let's rent a car and drive down the coast. You know, that famous drive? And it was like a random serendipitous thing. We're like, let's just do this. That's when things got fun. During that drive, we went through Big Sur and stayed the night there. And then I fell in love with that place. And I was like looking at the sunset and stuff. And I was like, man, I really messed up my choice by like living in New York. When there was like these redwoods and the ocean and the sun, I was like, oh my God. And then we kept driving down, we went to LA, and I liked LA more. It just seemed more counterculture. Silicon Valley seemed like very corporate. And my wife liked LA too, so then we got a place here. And I thought, what better, it's like a perfect kind of turning of like the page or the chapter to move to a very different place and to start a brand new thing with a very different philosophy, which is more based on like what feels right. Because New York didn't feel right, but we did it anyway. San Fran didn't feel right, but then LA did, and we followed that. And then school, we followed that with all of the choices. And then it's quite interesting what happens when you follow those things. I just liked LA because it felt right, not very logical. But I didn't know it at the time, but LA is actually the capital of the world for like video games. So like all of the gaming studios are here, like Riot Games and all of them. And so then when we were trying to hire my co-founder,
Best engineers are here.
yeah, he was from Riot Games. He was one of the early engineers on the team that did like League of Legends. And so he ended up being my co-founder. Then he brought people he knew, like at least 5 of them over from Riot Games. And then that led to them coming up with gamification and all of these things that make school school came from like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, there really is something to that, like following that what feels right thing, but you, again, it's nuanced. If you just do that,
Yeah.
you might run out of money. You might, you can't just use feelings. You also have to use logic and numbers. You can't mess up the math. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so it was just a different philosophy, a different place, a fresh start, a fresh company. And I tried to do a lot of things different. Like I just grew my hair out, for example, because I was like, I've had short hair, fuck it, like let's just have some long hair. I hadn't listened to rock music in a long time. I was like, let's listen to that. I got into like heavy metal because I couldn't listen to it before, and I was like, I'm gonna try and find a way.
And now you like it?
Fuck yeah, it's like my favorite. So I was just trying to like develop a new appreciation for things. And yeah, is this making sense, what I'm saying? And I think what ended up coming from that is something that's more unique, not by like design, but just naturally, right? Whereas sometimes I think when you're trying to be unique, you are not.
Do you think that you had to go through that period that you had before to arrive where you are at now? Or you could have just like
I don't
shortcut?
know, because that's like some God level question, right? But I do know that people do manage to not go through that period and like succeed. For example, like Jeff Bezos, he seemed to he did have a corporate job actually. He didn't start Amazon until he was like 31. And he had worked as an analyst for a hedge fund for like 10-ish years. So, he had a period, I don't know if that was suffering or whatever, but then there's someone like let's take Mark Zuckerberg. He just went straight from his college dorm room to that. So like, these days I try not to actually give any advice because instead you just kind of tell the story and then kind of encourage people to look at other stories too, because honestly that can really limit you. And I think I let that limit me a lot too, because this guy told me that this is the way and it doesn't feel right, but that guy told me to do it, so I should just keep going through it. But honestly, like almost anything, if it works for you, like what's wrong with that?
Do you think that's one of the reasons why it felt gross, consulting.com?
Well, the interesting thing is it didn't really feel that gross to me, because what happens when you get into these deep like bubbles or like echo chambers or something, like, you know, you might, direct response copywriting, for example, is a really interesting thing. It's like, the more extreme you get into that world, dudes are like looking at like 20-page sales letters with like headlines and highlighter and like crazy language that any normal person, if they looked at it, they'd be like, what the fuck is this? But these guys are like, oh, that's like amazing. And it's because they're just comparing themselves to the other guy, and they're trying to like outdo each other at being more like extreme at this thing. And they haven't talked to a regular person in so long that they've like lost their awareness of like what they're doing in a way, you know. And that happens with marketing too, or even sales, or honestly anything. And I was quite buried into this deep bubble of internet marketing. You know, like I'd learned internet marketing, I was in these little bubbles of internet marketing, running ads, doing landing pages, funnels, thinking you had to say certain things, make a VSL in a certain way. And I think when you go further along that, a regular person sees that and they're just like, gross. And my wife is a good like frame of reference, because she never touched any of that. And she's also very like emotional, like feeling based. She's like an artist, so she would just like look at it, and based on what it felt like, she'd be like, ooh. But I'd be like, you don't understand the conversion rate. And the other thing that can fool you is like, gross can convert and be profitable. And so you think that means there's nothing wrong with it. But still, my wife would just think that it's gross. And I was like, but it converts, but maybe there's a better way. You know what I mean? Am I making sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I've seen that in the way that you promoted your courses, and I felt that with you, for example, it was different.
Yeah, well, I wanted to try some random stuff, so I thought when I was doing a launch, I used to think you had to make slides, and I hated slides, and I was like, fuck, I'm not going to make a slide ever again. And then I was like, okay, Google Doc maybe, like easier, some bullets, okay, I can do that. Then maybe just a loom of me talking. I was like, that's easy. Okay, now this is sounding a little bit more fun. And then for a fun thing to do myself, I thought, I'm not going to say a single direct response buzzword. I'm going to try to just remove that language completely. And then they said things like, never say the price. I was like, fuck it, let's just put it right in there. I was like, I wonder what would happen if I broke every rule, just for fun. Then do you remember this ad? Oh, maybe you won't remember this. I made an ad and it said, this is an ad. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't see that.
It was like one of the best performing ads I ever made. Yeah. Because I was struggling to write an ad, and I said just, this is an ad in the image. And I said, this is an ad, its purpose is to get your attention. Are you in my target market? I'm like, and it worked. And then it was like the most copied thing I've ever done, because it was such an easy template for other people to make. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is that I wanted to see what would happen if I just broke all the rules. And I started to make, things were more fun to make. They were unique because it didn't look like everything else. And they actually did better. And so once I started to see that more, I wanted to see how much I could fuck with the rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when, if you do that enough, you learn that there is no rules, really. Yeah. Other than like the law, which can't fuck with that too much. Yeah.
Okay. What feedback did you got from the people who onboarded with you? And looking at it backward, like, was it like, for me, it didn't feel like, it felt completely different from what you were doing before, and didn't feel gross, that way of doing things.
Yeah, I noticed that first of all we got some more regular people joining, and by regular people I mean someone who has a surfing school, someone who teaches like calisthenics or how to play the electric guitar, and which is really cool to see. Whereas when you're really extreme, you just get the other people that honestly do the same thing as you do, because you just win the battle of like, out of these 7 dudes, I'm the most extreme, and then those 7 dudes join your thing. What's interesting is those guys kind of were grossed out by what I did, because it breaks their rules.
Yeah.
So I didn't get them as customers, which might be a good thing, and I got everyone else who was doing normal things. So that was cool to see. And it was way easier to make and way more effortless. And then I noticed I also didn't need to run ads, because it was like, it resonated more with the right people, that I didn't need to throw as much volume at it. So I could just send a few emails, make some YouTube videos, and easily fill up the volume. Yeah.
And do you think that the way you were teaching inside is still like the best way you can teach?
That's like another God level question.
But would you, maybe I can reformulate, would you, if you had to do it again today, would you do it the same way, or you have learnings that makes you want to do it a different way?
We're making a little course right now that's just free, included in the Schoolers community. You've seen that thing?
Not the new one.
Yeah, so it's just called School 101. It teaches you how to start a community. That's how I would do it at the moment with my current understanding, and it's the next step forward from, I think, what I was teaching there. So I make it with someone else, with Kirby, in that set, and we actually make it live.
The school news?
We were making it on School News.
Oh.
So we said in today's episode we're going to make a module, and it's this one, and then we'd record it, and then upload the recording as the course module. I think doing it with someone else makes it way more, and not doing just slides. Dude, if someone sends me a fucking video of someone talking to some slides, oh my God. So there's no slides, and someone isn't just talking at some slides. It's 2 people. You know what? One thing I did is I looked at what content do I actually consume, and I'm very picky. I never watch talking head videos, ever. I don't watch webinars. I haven't seen a webinar in 8 years. I haven't seen a VSL in 8 years, not one. Slides, I haven't made a deck in 8 years or something. And I don't like that either. I don't even like talking head videos. I do really love podcasts though, especially ones that aren't edited and premeditated. More like the Joe Rogan and Theo Von, and Lex Friedman's even gotten a lot better at it recently too, where it kind of just wanders all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I found that I like watching those the most, and that I actually was learning more from those than I was from structured education, almost by accident. I didn't even know that was the thing I was wanting to learn, but I just kind of did. And so I was like, if I like watching that, then I would probably like making that. And so, because you're talking I'm talking to you right now, it's natural. I didn't have to put together slides. Yeah, so I think the more natural you can get the delivery and the content, the better it will be. And so obviously you thought about this a bit before, and you've got some points, so it's not just totally random. So me and Kirby will get a Google Doc, and we have a constraint, 1 pager, we call it. It's just some bullets. It cannot be more than 1 page. And then the other constraint is we've got to get through this basically in 30 minutes or less. But if it's only 15, let's just cut it. Those constraints are nice. 1 page Google Doc, and someone to collaborate with on it, and then you just get on and do it live, and you riff like talking together like what we're doing. You've got some bullets and we're talking back and forth, and then record that, and that's like the course content. And then it's people will actually watch it,
Yeah.
which is step one.
It's less boring.
And you'll actually make it too. So like, it's more fun to make, people actually consume it, and shit, they might actually like it. And if that happens, they will probably learn something, and then the success can happen, right? Yeah.
And how did you made like the different modules and videos? How did you decide like on the topic? Like
Yeah,
you were
so
talking with Kirby, and then you just like on a blank table.
yeah, so for me, I always I have to like be doing it first. Like, so we've been building the community, like our own community. We've seen a lot of people build communities, and we've also done the school games, and we've heard a lot of things. Kirby's also had his own community, so like there was some experience first. I would never try to make a course without first just diving in and just trying out a lot of shit, and then you just sit down with a Google Doc and you're like, what is the goal? And it's like, to start a successful community. Well, what does that mean? Well, I guess there's two versions of that. One could be just a free community that's successful, but you could also have a paid one. So there's like two paths. Then where are people starting from? Like, oh, well, what if they've already got an audience, but most people won't have an audience? And so like, okay, where are they starting from? What might their goal be? Like, so you've got, and then you're like, okay, well, what are the main things that they need to do? And you write them down in a Google Doc. The constraints I find are like really useful, and I impose them on myself all the time. I'm like, no more than 10 modules, no more than 10 minutes each. Like, I start nice and extreme, but then, one module ends up being 40 minutes because it has to be. But at least then you are trying to make it shorter instead of trying to make it longer. And then you just debate it. It's so useful to like have someone else to talk to about it. Like, I suck at doing things by myself, honestly. I'm so bad, because I'll overthink things, and that would be like my biggest tip for people, is you really should collaborate with people more. It's so much easier. And also talking to the customers too. And so then, we came up with the list of modules, and I always like to start with a big picture. So the first module is called the big picture, and it's like, I was saying to Kirby, we need a visual. If people just see a simple visual and that encapsulates the whole thing, then the rest of the course should just complete the parts of that picture. So it clicks together, and if they do that, they get their goal. And so, I was like, okay, there's traffic. You need traffic. And there's different sources. Where does it come from? Instagram, TikTok, ads, Then you need a community. And then you have members, and then maybe they pay you. And those are the components. But you've got to master these different things to do that. So the module one's like the big picture. We showed the visual, and then to make concepts, I hate concepts, really, because you can just get lost in concept land. And so you show a very simple concept, and then you immediately show examples of real people to prove that this is the concept. So it's like, for this traffic source, here's these 3 people, and this is how they're doing it. For this traffic source, there's these 3 people. And so we're showing people immediately real people that are doing it. And that's also how we're kind of validating that we're teaching the right things, because it's not just coming from our mind. We're like, let's look at what people are doing, and then let's find the lessons there, and then put that into the training. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's a module on like finding your thing, because some people need help finding their thing. Then there's one on like first 3 members, like how do you get those? And then there's one on 10 true regulars, which is like trying to grow the community more and get some regulars. there's going to be more modules on like getting traffic, retention, community management, just the basic things you need to do to do the thing. I would say there's just examples littered throughout. You know, when we look at our engagement curves, like it always hits when we show an example, a real life one, and instead of trying to explain, just show it. So like you show them the about page. You show them their YouTube channel with the link in the bio that links to the about page. You show them their price and how many members are in there, and that math equals that income, instead of you trying to explain it. So like show, don't tell, examples, simple visuals, and minimalism. And is this making sense? Like,
Yeah, completely.
yeah. So that's kind of how I go about it. That was quite a long-winded response.
Very interesting. I mean, I'm asking the questions because I'm currently in that process of building this for myself. And I loved what you did before, and even more what you are doing now. That's why, like, it's so helpful. I feel people are shifting from all this. And also, you said that you had a module about how to find your thing.
Yeah.
And I think that having that module avoid so much like mindset content about how to force yourself, how to get discipline, how to do this, how to do that, you know?
Yeah, you're right. There's nothing about mindset in there. Well, no, there's a little tip actually, which is like the extent of the mindset training in this course is don't stare at the summit, look at your boots, which is this quote I learned from mountain climbers, which is like, don't fixate on the goal, just the next step, right? And you don't need to doubt whether it's possible or not, because look at all of these examples. Like it is, but it is hard, and you just need to focus on the next step. And the only way you can really lose is by giving up. And that's it. And that you should like ask yourself, how can I make this fun when you reach an obstacle and if you hate it? Because, you know, the biggest risk really is you quitting, right? That's how people fail. Not by other stuff, it's because they quit basically. And the main reason they quit is because they hate it. So that the major risk is you hating what you're doing. So like that's the thing to be mindful of. Yeah, and so that's the extent of the mindset training really. Because I did find it quite useful to not, again, this came from like looking at the outliers, not looking at my immediate peer group, because my immediate peer group was like, oh, you need to do affirmations, you need to do meditation, exercise, fucking blue blocking glasses. And then, you know, I look at like Elon Musk and I'm like, the dude sleeps like 4 hours a night, he's unhealthy as fuck, he doesn't work out, he drinks Diet Coke, he doesn't meditate, he has like 5 businesses, he's like out of control, and he seems to be kicking everyone's ass. And like a lot of these and these people aren't doing like 4-hour morning routines, they just like wake up, go to work, right? And they never actually talked about mindset either. They weren't doing affirmations or any of this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, they're just fucking doing it and they're having fun and they want to do it and they're just doing it a lot. So I was like, maybe I'm like actually getting distracted by all of this stuff. So I stopped meditating. I haven't meditated in like 3 years now. And I stopped having such a rigid routine and structure, let things be a bit more chaotic. And I even stopped exercising, but I don't know if that's actually like really good advice because I also got fat. So, but I also made the most progress I've ever made. So like, you can't say that exercising definitely is the answer to being more successful because again, it's like a distraction in a way. And so I just was like, maybe I'm like distracted by all of this shit and it's taking up a lot of time. What if I didn't have to do this? If I just woke up and went to work, oh my God. That made me energized actually, but it was a burden. I used to have a personal trainer and I'd wake up every morning and immediately, even going to bed, I was like hating my life because I knew in the morning I'm gonna have to wake up and fucking go to the gym with that guy.
I think all of this comes from when you are actually hating what you do. And so when you hate what you do and you just do it for the money, you have to find a way to trick your mind to be able to do the things that you hate doing. And without all this, it makes it easier to do something that you hate. All this, the monk-like discipline, the meditation, the rituals, like you're trying to trick yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I even found this thing which was like, I used to say like, eliminate distraction, focus, monk-like discipline. But then I was like, what if the distraction was the answer? Which is a really interesting, and in a way it kind of has been like, for example, that cat that's in school, you know, that little cat that plays music? What a great distraction. You know, one day I was just like, there should be a cat in school. And I spent the next like 2 weeks working with the engineers making this fucking cat. There's like no logical benefit to it, but it kind of gives school this special character in a way. And there's sometimes, and you hear this actually, there's actually good examples about this, that like a lot of the best innovations were accidents, right? And so like if you don't leave room for accidents and things to emerge, or things that are just nice little tangents every now and then, everything's too rigid and it's like suffering. And also like good luck motivating a team around that, right? Like if you're trying to get a team, if you want to recruit great people and have them motivated, like, you know, my co-founder Daniel, he told me something interesting. He was like, we shouldn't try to like force people to work long hours, or because like we should just make it fun, and then they probably will want to. And I was like, damn, that's an interesting way to do it. And it definitely works. When the team is like having fun, you see they're like writing code at like 1 a.m, 2 a.m. on the weekend or whatever.
How do you not fall into the Silicon Valley side of it, you know, where people are just having too much, even, well, I don't know if it's fun, but... No one's having fun in Silicon Valley. Yeah, it's true.
It's corporate as hell. They talk about, they make it look... They have a table tennis ball, and they're like, we have fun, but no one is having fun over there. They're in meetings, they've got PowerPoints, How do you make it fun then? Well, working with really talented people is fun. Having one bad person really makes things not fun. So you have to like have really good people on the team, and you have to like, if someone isn't right, you have to get rid of them. That's the easiest way that something isn't fun, is you've got the wrong person or people on the team. And also like winning is fun. So like, you're kind of delusional if you're like failing, but you're like having fun in a way, right? It's hard to truly have fun if that's happening. So you've got to be talented, and you've got to be building something people want, and they've got to be loving it and sharing their feedback, and you have to actually believe that you're actually pretty good at doing what you're doing, and it's to be right. So you don't, because otherwise you might think you're good, but deep down you know you actually kind of suck. That's not fun. So you have to get things right, I think, and not ignore problems or pretend they don't exist. And I think when things are done right, they're actually quite fun. Efficiency is fun. Not wasting time is fun. We are ruthless about not having meetings. We have barely any meetings, barely any process in our company. Like, we mock and joke about SOPs. like, because I think that's kind of bullshit in a way. And meetings, we don't really do that. And even Slack channels, or too many notifications in Slack. Every now and then I get everyone to comb through their Slack and delete things, because that's not fun when there's a lot of noise. And I also think just you personally are if you are having fun and your customers are like having fun, then there's a higher chance that everyone else will. And this kind of plays into every choice you make, because you can probably tell just by looking around the office, it's kind of fun, right? Like
It is.
the tables are different colors, same with the, like there's cactuses, there's a
The
school
bus.
bus. Yeah. Every chair's a different color, like the office is kind of fun. And that car is pretty fun too. Have you been in one of those? The Plaid?
No.
You've never been in one?
No.
Oh my god. You know that car has 1,050 horsepower?
It's yours?
Yeah. Do you know much about like horsepower?
Yeah. I've been in the oldest one, yeah. So I've seen how it is. It makes a little bit sick. Makes yourself a little bit sick if you play with it too much.
Yeah, I mean, not if you're driving probably, but if you're like a passenger maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much fun, it's so fast, it's like a little go-kart.
You have to try. I rented the Hummer EV without the roof.
Oh yeah.
It is so fun because it's electrical, very powerful, but like very fun.
I used to race cars.
Really?
Yeah. And I used to build them too, like with my dad. So I know a lot about like the technical details of performance. So like, I know how much horsepower that thing's got, and it's 0 to 60, and it's insane, like that car. Did you ever watch the first Fast and the Furious, you know, with Vin Diesel?
Yeah.
You know how they were talking about a 10-second car?
Yeah.
That's like an 8 or 9-second car, and it's got baby seats in the back. So when you realize that now you can have a silent car that you can drive to work with children's seats in it, that is way faster than Vin Diesel's car that did a wheelie. That's fun, like really fun. And so that makes me, you know, just the commute is fun, and then the office is fun, and I think it's a good way to approach things instead of like just endure the suffering.
How do you disconnect from work?
Well, I've got a family, which is quite useful for that, because, you know, there's little kids and they're like screaming and
You
climbing.
manage to disconnect and forget about work when you're with your family?
It generally takes me like half an hour to an hour to do it, yeah. But I do, you know, just not looking at your phone is a great first step. Also, I find not working from home is useful, because I work here, I have my commute, and then I'm back with, so there's like some separation of, I struggle with it if I'm in the house with them.
Okay. You never work from home then?
Every now and then I will, and it's very painful.
Oh.
Because, you know, you're trying to focus on something and your daughter's banging on the door, like, Dad. You have to decide whether you like ignore her, which is, or you don't, but now you're like kind of like that. I hate that. It's like torture. So I'd rather just be fully here and then fully there.
That's great.
Yeah. Plus, your wife kind of resents you a lot, I think, if you are in the house all the time but not paying attention to them. And so do your kids a little bit. But when you come home after not being there, they love you more.
You come home late?
No, I'm home for dinner every night. I figured out how to do that, by the way. It took me like a year to figure this out after having children, but my wife was like, I want you to be home for dinner. I was like, I can't. I'm barely getting things done as is. How am I supposed to work less? But then I actually just wrote it down. I was like, got a Google sheet out. And I was like, I wanted to work 12 hours a day. And I was like, dinner's at 6. So I was like, what time would I have to wake up to be home by then And I was like, 5. And then I was like, I would like to have like 7-ish hours of sleep. What time would I have to go to bed to wake up at that time and have 7 hours? And I was like, oh, that's only like 9, 10 o'clock. I was like, I can probably do that. And so, yeah, I wake up at like, my alarm's generally set for 5, but sometimes my body just wakes up at 4. If I'm motivated. If I'm not, my alarm will wake me up. And then I work until like 5:30 and drive home dinner by 6. So I can still fit 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and be home for dinner every night. And the Sunday's very important. I don't do any work on Sunday.
You think that to achieve what you want to achieve, you have to work 12 hours a day? Or it helps you get faster today, or like would it be better if you worked less but you cannot? What do you think about that? Because what are you doing during this 12 hours? Like, is it what kind of work? Because I feel that we hear the word work and everyone has a different meaning for that. I mean, talking with your team and with your customer is work, but like, does it feel like being behind computer and typing something? Like?
Well, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
one reason I want to do it is because it's actually really fun, right? And because making progress and winning is fun, and making your customers happy is fun. So like, it's fun. So I want to work as much as possible, but I also want to have a family. I don't want to be one of those people. And I also kind of found the limit to how much I can work before it doesn't really work. And it is, for me, it's like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I've worked more than that at some points. It doesn't last for me. Some people might be different, but for me, I can't. That's my max, really.
How long you've kept that rhythm for?
8 years. Yeah, yeah.
And how often do you take breaks?
Generally like 5 days off 4 times a year.
Okay.
Every like 90 days roughly.
And you manage to disconnect completely?
Yeah, but I can't check anything. So like, I don't check my email.
Okay.
I don't check my Slack. I don't even check school.
Okay.
Like, so across Christmas, you might see my last online time might be like 5 days ago. I just don't look. Obviously, if there's an emergency, I have to do what I have to do, but I can't look and be present. Yeah. So I think that's where people might go wrong. You know what it's like if you just pop open your phone and you read one message and then you're like instantly like, oh my God, you're no longer there anymore, and there's nothing you can do about that. So you're like screwed.
You think that today with that rhythm and how you work, and you found like the perfect balance for yourself and for your life, like, and you wouldn't do any different, or are you looking to have some improvement in some areas of your life?
Things can always be better, right? Like, I think some exercise would probably be good for me.
What?
Some exercise would probably be good for me. But I'm trying to find some that I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought would be like riding a dirt bike, because I really love riding a dirt bike, but then I crashed it, as you know. So I was like, okay, it's not that. So some exercise that's fun.
You tried team sports? Like paddle, or it's not more popular here. Here it's more like pickleball, these kind of things. More like play.
If we had a court,
Yeah?
I would probably like it, but just the thought of like
going
getting in the
there,
car, I'm like,
yeah.
fuck it. Like, I really hate like,
Yeah.
I do really love nature. So, you know, one thing my wife used to say, she wanted to travel a lot and she would take us on like urban adventures to like different cities, and I hated that shit. But we now go to places we both like, which is like forest cabins and lakes and rivers and mountains and like the wilderness kind of stuff. So I like spending some time in nature. And even where we live now is like it's out in nature. So we have got like chickens and bees, like beehives. And
Do you do it? Like having a...
we have someone that comes and shows me what to do.
Nice. You enjoy doing it?
If someone else is basically doing it. I don't want to be responsible for another thing, you know? And I really like that stuff though, because it's just really simple. Like bees and honey, chickens and some eggs, and picking fruit off trees, and walking around in nature, especially if you've got children. It's the best environment for them and for you guys to hang out. And it's cool because we don't have to leave our house to have fun, which is good for me because I don't like processes to get to something. Like, so I think, yeah, I've got a pretty well set up right now for me. Some people might really not like this, but I'm sure it could be a bit better.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what do you think about me? We've had a few conversations from those that we have. What can you tell and what do you think?
Well, I could very quickly tell that you were pretty thoughtful and like smart and articulate. You can quickly get to the thing. Like when I was hinting at that before and you were like, oh, so like that? And I was like, yeah, that's where you should be thinking. I'm talking quite abstractly because I don't want to reveal what we were actually talking about. But I noticed you were quite quick to get to what I was talking about. And that's quite rare. Like most of the time that doesn't happen. So I noticed that pretty early on. And you did seem pretty real. Yeah. Which isn't really like a business testimonial, but we haven't like worked together.
Yeah.
You haven't been like copywriting for me. So like, I tend to notice that because it's rare and it's probably the most important kind of thing. Yeah. If someone's real and they understand things and they can articulate things and quickly get to it, like, makes life a lot easier. Yeah.
I just finished my conversation with Sam. I hope you liked it and you had good insight from it. What I like about this guy is that he completely shifted he was operating before from a place where it's very money oriented, I would say, when he was doing Consultech.com, and this company was doing great. The context you maybe don't have is that he shut it down a company. I mean, he actually sold his shares, but he completely changed his focus from a company that was making about 30 million a year at its peak to something that at that time financially didn't make any sense. As he said, school took 4 years to get 1 million users. Now it got about 15 million users and it's making about 5 million a month, something like that. But it took a lot of time and he just followed his gut, his passion. I don't say that you should always follow your passion and you don't have to go through this kind of period when you just learn business and the basics of business. But there is not one way to do it. I guess my message and what I want to share on this channel is that there is not one way to do it. And I get it. If you're watching it, you want to be successful, you want to make a lot of money for everything that it brings to you. But trust me, you don't want to be in a place where you make a lot of money, but this doesn't make any sense. Because in the end, I agree with Sam, what we all want is happiness. And even if sometimes we tell ourselves stories, and some influencers might also say that if you want to be rich, you shouldn't want to be happy. I disagree strongly with that, because if you want to be successful, why is that? It's because you want to get people to admire you, you want to be able to be free to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But if you're not happy doing any of that, it doesn't make any sense. For some people, it takes them to make millions and millions and millions to wake up to that and just find out that it doesn't make sense, and they end up burning out or being in depression or unhappy or whatever. You know, we heard so many stories of founders who just exited their company and were unhappy. That's why also today I'm just doing things that I like and things that I want to do, and it makes yourself so much more free to just do what you want to do. Build a business that you want to build. Don't do the things that you hate. As Sam said, if there is something that you hate and there is a bad feeling about this, most of the time there is a reason, and you should be careful about that. Look at this, and maybe you're going in the wrong way. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I loved that.
and this is one of the reasons I'm creating content, to be able to meet these kind of great people, have conversation with them and share that with you. I guess that the world needs to hear that kind of messaging way more about business and entrepreneurship. If you like that and it resonated with you, send it to a friend that needs to hear those kind of messages. I mean, if you're looking to have success, look at what he's built. His company is worth somewhere between $500 to $1 billion. Also, the examples that he took, most of the very, very successful people in this world are not following the principles that online business gurus are teaching. So I hope you liked it. If you have in mind some people that you think I should have conversation with, just leave them in the comments. See you in the next one.
Hey, Roman numeral 7, babe, drop it like it's hot. If this world was mine, I'd take your dreams and make them multiply. If this world was mine, I'd take your enemies in front of God. Introduce them to that light, hit them strictly with that fire.